Hello there, this is Denzian, and today I'm looking at this. This is Mighty Empires. Now, I would call this an unboxing, but as you can see, I've already got it out of the box. I got it out of the box about 30 years ago, and I threw the box away. Why did I do that? I don't know. Mighty Empires is a Games Workshop, you could say game. It is really a board game. It came in the same size box as your Blood Bowls, your Dark Futures, your Adeptus Titanicus. But I always felt that it didn't need a box quite so big. And for whatever reason, in my youth, I decided to discard the box and keep the innards. Silly, I know, but I did that all those years ago. So those of you who know, it had a nice Renaissance battle scene on the front cover of that box. But it's gone, but the contents still survive, and here they are today. So Mighty Empires was designed for Warhammer Fantasy Battles, I think 2nd edition, or was it 3rd? 2nd, I think. Came out in 1990. And it's a standalone board game. You can play it as is. You build your little empire. I've built 2 here. I've got my blue empire, my red empire. And you basically move around the board, conquering lands, fighting each other. And you can roll off for battles and so on. But as an alternative, you can use it in conjunction with Warhammer Fantasy Battles. So whenever your armies meet, you can play a tabletop game. So it's a campaign system for Warhammer Fantasy. They did bring it back. When was it now? It must be 15 years, 20 years, I don't know now. With plastic pieces. I've got a couple of the tiles here for the plastic ones, instead of card tiles instead. A bit more three-dimensional. But I don't think it was a board game. It was kind of more of an expansion for your Warhammers, including 40k if I remember correctly. But this is the original. It comes with a deck of tiles, and the idea is you place a highland tile down with your mountains facing up, and then around it you can place your board. So with your other player you take turns placing a tile down. So I started with this one here, and then around it you start putting other tiles. But if you have a highland tile like this one with nothing but mountains around it, you need another mountain tile. So you pick another highland tile and then you decide how it fits next to it, and on it goes. And then once you've hit a lowland, you can put a lowland on. If you have a stream, that can use a river tile, and that can go out into a coastal tile, and then you can create a lovely board. Now I did this yesterday, just messing around. I think you'd want something a little less sort of long. I think you want something a bit squarer for a game, don't you really? So you've got more room to maneuver. If you ever get a tile with a dot on it, that's where players can start. And you put a capital city down on it, as I've done with this one here, for example, the Blue Kingdom. And then you roll for each tile around it to see what is there. And every type of tile has its own table to roll on. So lowlands here. And you might get a village, you might get a city. We have a fortress, and with our capital in the middle. You get loads of spares, as you can see, look at them all. Now, I never painted these. I had them blank plastic for decades, and then during lockdown I ran out of minis, so I thought, oh, I'll paint those little villages and towns up. Oh, the hours flew by. Over here for the Red Kingdom, not so lucky on the dice rolls. No other cities, just one village there. Although 2 villages, but a lot of barren tiles, nothing there. But they're my evil kingdom with the skull. But because their capital city was on the coastal tile, I got to roll for ships, which means I have some vessels, which means they can always sail around the coast, can't they? This kingdom doesn't have any. And for each tile that you have, you can roll up points. So for a city and a village, you roll a certain amount of dice, and that is converted into points to buy your armies. So you can split the points as you feel fit between little banners, such as these fellas. These represent your armies who move around the kingdoms. And so when you get into a fight using Warhammer, you use those points to determine the size of your force and design your army list. Easy peasy. The good thing about this game, the reason why it survived for me and I've kept it, is because I might not want to play Warhammer, but I might want to play a different game. Be it an historical game, maybe a Napoleonic game, for example, maybe another fantasy game, and then just use exactly the same system. I don't see why it can't work for any game rather than just Warhammer. If you have a points total for an army, go for it. And every army has a bit of baggage, and they use up baggage as they move around. Each turn was a month, so you move from one tile to the next, takes a month of movement. You scout the tile that you want to go into, you roll to see what's there, you come across a village, a town, whatever, and you move in. Take it for yours, conquer it. And then, of course, when you hit the opposing players, that's when the fights take place, of course. So the rulebook, in classic 90s style, didn't survive. I ripped it out of the... look at it. Oh, dear. Oh, no, look at that. It got hole punched, as they always seem to want you to do. And it's remained in this folder for well over 30 years. So we have how to build your maps. So the lowlands, coastlands, and so on. And how they fit together. Of course, you could just break from these rules and create whatever landscape you want. And maybe you want to go for something historical and you want to try and recreate it using the map tiles. You could do that, couldn't you? I like the fact that they think we're stupid. Don't leave a void. Don't build the tiles with a void in the middle. Maybe somebody did that, I don't know. So yeah, you roll up to see what's in the tiles in your kingdom. And then you can roll up how many ships, if you have a city on the coast. And then how many points worth of troops you get from those areas. And then you roll a couple of dice to see how much baggage you start the game with, and every time your little stand moves from a tile, it uses up a baggage. Some tiles generate food supplies, so you can live off the land and so on, but you can also raise tiles. I have some counters here, so you can do a scorched earth policy, burn the crops, so if your opponent goes in there, they can't get food. That's always quite nice. No subsistence. What do? And you roll a dice. How many of your points leave? You have starved to death or ran away. Can't feed them. They're not going to hang around, are they? Army marches on its stomach. So when you scout each tile, you roll on a table, see what's there. Lots of different things can be on there. An event. It's always good when something freaky happens. So be it a lowland, coastal, highland, or river tile, they all have their own tables. And if you do get an event, you can roll on this table to see what happens. You come across a mercenary band, they might join you, or you might have to fight them. Sickness sweeps through your army, your supplies get rotten, there's a mutiny, all sorts of things can happen. But when you move, you've got to get across the board. So if you're going over mountains, over rivers, you can see how you can move around the rivers, staying from one tile to the next, but you can't go over the river unless you roll to see if you can find a route to get across without losing men. And then battles. So if you're not using Warhammer, there's a very simple system which uses a selection of cards where you pick what you want to do. So just hold your ground, go for a direct assault, counter-attack, surprise attack, flank attack, and you sort of cross-reference with what your opponent's doing. And you can roll dice and then you sort of get a score which tells you how many points of men you lose and the attacker and defender both lose. So you whittle down your forces. So you can play it as a board game without playing Warhammer. And we have sieges. Now this is from the days of Warhammer Siege when that rulebook did exist. So again, you could play out a whole siege, or you could do a really quick simple system very similar to the fight system that we've just looked at, where you can assault or starve them out, which may take a few turns. Depends how much food they've got, doesn't it? Yeah, so we can raise an area to the ground, and we have rules for ships, of course. And let's not forget Man of War was a game of choice back in the 90s, so you could have played Man of War as well as Warhammer using this system. Man of War I don't think was out when it originally came out itself, so it had its own naval engagement chart, what happens, but nothing stopping you using Man of War. So yeah, you could do, as I say, Napoleonics. You could have, if you do Warlords, Black Seas, is it? You could play that with Black Powder or any other Napoleonic game, I suppose. And then you have 6 turns, which is the summer campaign season, and then you go to the winter season, where every army has to go back to its initial locations and beat to winter quarters. And there's a chance then that you can roll a random spell for your Kingdom's Wizard to use on your enemy. You have autumn spells as well for different times of the year. And what happens during the winter months? Do raised tiles regrow in the spring? Random events, which include Dragon Rage, which is why we have some dragon figures over here, which come out of the mountains and then randomly move across the board, burning and destroying everybody in their wake. Not what we want to come across. And then we get revenue from our taxes, from our villages and cities that we have. So you earn money, and then you can spend that money, of course, on buying more troops, or perhaps building more fortresses, or buying diplomats. So you can have spies and assassins, and you can recruit for Warhammer, of course. Spend your money. Buy more baggage. Build more things. Hire an assassin to kill your enemy's leaders. A spy to figure out what forces they have. Sabotage. Set their buildings ablaze. Destroy their harbours. And then a more dedicated section on actual tabletop battles of Warhammer. So if you're using them together. So what terrain will be on your board, depending on if you come across each other in a lowland, coastal, river or highland tile. So woods, boulders, villages, of course. So random, depending on what tile you're in. What happens when you lose? How do you route off the table? Where do you move to? The siege situation. Characters, do they recover from... No, you don't. From game to game. And then there's some really nice things at the back here about differences for different races. We've got dwarves, undead and so on. Little special rules. And my favourite thing is this. The Bretonnian human place names. Empire human place names. Dwarf and elven place names. So you can do a proper campaign and name every town and city. And just roll randomly to add the two elements together and create a name for your town. We also have personal name endings. The Black Speech. So for anyone being an evil... Although I don't think that was really fair. Look, Skaven, Dark Elves and Goblinoids. I don't think Dark Elves would use the same language as a Goblinoid. I don't think they're going to name their place Grimrot, you know, or Gorslag. Who knows? But it's really quirky and funny, and it's nice and very handy for other games as well, really. And it goes into the calendar, so you could write a diary of your campaign, keep track of your armies, painting your models. Oh dear. And now what I've got at the back here are some White Dwarf articles, which you always see what's on the other side. Oh look, epic. Yeah. But the original article about the game. There's the fully painted, nicely miniatures. And then we've got extra rules that I stole from White Dwarf. So agents who can do your bidding. Oh, look at that, bless. Necromunda. I think that's before Necromunda was Necromunda. I think it was still Confrontation then. It wasn't actually a game. Anyway, that's on the other side of this. This rules for pirates on the seas. What else do we have? Wilderness locations, random things, ruined cities, necropolis. I have a necropolis. Here it is. Kingdom of the Dead. So one of the metal miniatures they did release, along with some undead armies to move around the board. Wizard's Towers. Magic from the Wizard's Tower. So, yes, rules for Necropolis. Searching the Necropolis, what do you find? And then, bizarrely, I've got some random articles from Warhammer. So, Chaos Dwarf Ballistics. Add that to your army. Good old swivel gun. And then Witch Elves. So, I don't know why I've got those articles, but there they are. Classic. There we go. So, that's the rule book. As I say, Mighty Empires didn't survive my box, but the armies are still there. I've got my blue army, my red army, and over there in the baggie, the yellow army. And all my tokens are still here. As I say, wasn't much to it, which is why I didn't think it warranted such a big box. But a lot of adaptability with this game. Don't have to use it for Warhammer. And so it still survives today. And I am hoping to use this for something a bit quirky in the future. So that's Mighty Empires. I don't know if you had the more modern version of it with the plastic tiles, or if you remember the original. Did it survive? If you are playing this game today with these tiles, my advice is tack these down, because as soon as you nudge them, oh dear, earthquake. So yeah, bit of blue tack, stick them down to a board, and it's keeping it somewhere if you are playing Warhammer or a miniatures game where this doesn't happen. Last thing you want halfway through a campaign is to find your tiles all over the floor because the cat's jumped on it or something stupid. So that's me for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again.